I would like to narrow it down in my deliberation to novel versus narrative film, or more precisely, word versus image, because I think it finally boils down to that. Since Hollywood mainstream cinema is the prototype of all narrative cinema, it will feature prominently in my deliberation. At the very outset, let me state that these two are very different forms of writing and stand no comparison at all, for the very simple reason that the book is a finished product and the screenplay, all said and done, is only an intermediate stage, a blueprint which has no independent existence.
Well, by any stretch of imagination, I don't think I qualify as a literary person. Writing for audiovisual medium, well, that I've been doing for a while, mostly for advertising films. And then I've written the film that I had done a couple of years back. But that was more out of necessity than anything else. And the problem is that if you grow up and if you're brought up in Kolkata and this part of the world, I'm sure it's here, that you can't escape literature or, you know, all the other things with it. So I can just, in a nutshell, tell you how I meandered into writing for audiovisual medium. When we were growing up, boys would start writing poetry even before they start shaving, before they grow their mustache. And nowadays they start making films with their DSLRs and even their cell phones. But I was part of the minority. I did not write poetry. In fact, I was very scared of heavy literary stuff. But I unfortunately went to a school which encouraged all this. There was a huge influence of, amongst other people, of Sukumar Rai when we were growing up. So his limericks and his nonsense rhyme. So quietly, I mean, I said that let me also try, because all the others, I was more adept in drawing, so that was recognized. But I started writing limericks and trying to, rhyme lines, which I, kept it to myself. When I finally drifted into advertising films, I joined an advertising agency. I joined the audiovisual department because by then I was pretty convinced I wanted to do something in films, and I did not know what to do, and I also had to make a living. So I had, I used to parallelly write, and one particular thing, then I had the courage to go up and tell my senior that I've written something. It was actually for Maggie, 2 minutes noodles, and they wanted a Bengali film, so they came down to Delhi, and it was, I think, 100 years of centenary of Sukumar Rai. So I wrote something which was basically inspired by a very well-known nonsense rhyme called Khai Khai, and that worked. And from then onwards, I started writing, and I basically wrote for my for my advertising films, and often there were jingles. And this is where this whole exercise which I had done all these years was a great help. And when I made this film, I had a whole lot of ideas and stories in my mind, like all the filmmakers would. I read a synopsis first and tried to sell the idea to the producers, which I did, surprisingly. They bought the synopsis itself before they read the script. And then I started writing the script. I had written for 20-seconders and 30-seconders. Now I had to write for at least a 2-hour film. I mean, my producers just say that try and, don't do too much of an arty-farty stuff. If you want to make another film, try and put in some elements. So I said, what do you want in the film? He said that, it should be entertaining. This is very confusing. And what is, entertainment means different things to different people. So that is how I ended up writing for a full-fledged feature film. Let Vishal take the floor.
Actually, I have not prepared anything, but I can share my experience as he shared his experiences of writing. Writing is, for me, is a very, very scary word. because you never get it right. For the visual medium, for me, is the film. Strangely, we only had one film institute in our country, that is Pune, just 10 years back. Now we have more, or we had SRFTI. So when I wanted to become a filmmaker, I started to look for the books that how to learn this craft, because this is the craft. A film structure requires a 3-act, beginning, middle, end. And in those beginning, middle, ends, you also require a plot point 1 where it triggers the conflict, and you require a plot point 2 which triggers the climax. So this is like a scientific craft. And if you know that, it's easier, because it's still, it's the business of emotions. So I knew nothing about it, so I started reading Mughal, and the first book I read was Lajo Siguri's The Art of Dramatic Writing, and many more books, and Sitfield was very scary. I decided that I'll make a film because my music career was really going down. So first film I wrote was a film called Makdi, and it was to be produced by Children Film Society. And the money was so less, as we were speaking before the session, that we don't, even now we don't have the dedicated screenwriters or film writers in India, because the good screenwriters immediately turn into film directors, because we don't respect our screenwriters. We don't give them enough money so they can just be writers. Honestly, I tell you that I wanted to make a film in a gangster genre, and I was looking for a story that I can place in gangster world, because most of these underworld films, they end up in gang wars. I was repulsed by that. So I was looking for a story which can go beyond it. It gives me the freedom to have the backdrop of this gangster world or underworld, and it still can tell some human story. The first story I read was Macbeth. And when I came to the point where the king was killed by Macbeth, I was shocked, because I was not expecting that he'll go and really kill the king. And then I read the whole story, and suddenly I realized that this is a story I want to adapt. And before that, I had seen Kurosawa's Throne of Blood for a reference, for the witch's reference in Makdi. And that was lying in my subconscious. So I reached Bombay, and the first thing I talked to my co-writer Abbas, and I told him that, I found the story for my underworld film, and it's Macbeth. And the first thing I told him, that first thing, and it has to be contemporary, and the first thing I cracked are the witches, because witches are the most important thing in Macbeth. And I told him the cops should be the witches, because they make best witches in the contemporary world. And that's how my journey started. And I realized the dramatic writing of Shakespeare. And I was actually innocent. That's how I think I had the courage. I did the changes whatever I wanted. I changed Lady Macbeth from Macbeth's wife to King's mistress. If I would have gone wrong, my career was finished. Again, I wanted to make a film for children, and if Ruskin Saab is sitting here, I read his story, The Blue Umbrella. And that's where I realized that the one more thing which I should look for in my scripts or stories I'm looking for is the resolution. In that short story of Ruskin Saab, the umbrella gets stolen, and the thief is immediately caught, and he's ostracized, and then the redemption of that. So my co-writer jokingly said that, what if the thief is not caught? And that's where I realized, oh God, we have the third structure, or the third act. So thief, which Pankaj Kapoor played that, he steals the umbrella and he gets it painted. Then I took that from a folk tale, that सियार की कहानी जिसमें वो अपने को रंग में गिर जाता है और बारिश में उसका रंग धुल जाता है. So I adapted that folk lore in that story. And after that, I went to make Omkara, Omkara also had a very strange history as far as writing is concerned. Because at that time I was making a film with Amir Khan, and we had finalized the script. Before the production, we had some creative differences. Both of us had different point of views on that script, so we decided not to do that film. So again, I realized, okay, let's go back to Shakespeare, because there is a storyline and there is a structure line. I just have to adapt that. And after Macbeth, actually, I had read almost all his plays, because the door was open for me suddenly. And I have lived in Meerut in the Western UP, and I have seen that life in Western UP, and I thought that the main Bollywood, the mainstream, is totally unexposed to that area. And we took Othello, but this time I was very careful. I did only, I think, one major change in that, where Iago's wife kills Iago in that, and which doesn't happen in Othello. And we wrote that film practically in 3 weeks, and within 3 months I was shooting that film. So with every film, with every script, you understand something. And that's what I realized in Kamine. The films are written on 2 tables. One on writing table, and the second time it's written on the editing table. I took the ensemble characters, a lot of characters and lots of situations, lot of crime, and the 2 parallel stories are running together. 2 brothers, twin brothers, and their parallel stories are running, and they meet at one point, they crisscross, they meet, and then the third act starts. So when the film was made, and it was so convoluted, when the first cut I saw, I feel like killing myself. So there's a very senior editor in Chennai, Mr. Shrikar Prasad, and he has edited films in almost all the languages of this country, more than 300 films. So I contacted him and I requested him to come and look at my first cut and suggest something to me. And that's where I realized the power of editing, that how the script is again revisited, re-edited, and rewrote on the writing table. He took some scenes of the second half and put them in the first half. Some scenes from the first half he took into the second half. And then he made me shoot for another 2 weeks, I think. And the final result was Kamine, that it was presentable, and I was little happy that now I can sit and say that I have made this film. So this is what I realized, because I am not a trained filmmaker, I have not gone to any film school, so it was all self-learning, so it was very difficult for me. And again in Saat Khoon Maaf, I was writing, and it was supposed to be, as Raskin Saab said, that it was supposed to be a black comedy, and you made it in a very intense film. And my intention was to make a black comedy, but somehow it came out to be more intense than black comedy. And that's where, I was, that Hitchcock once said that thrill is better than suspense. So take the audience along through the thrill rather than, revealing something as a suspense. You have to be ahead of the viewer and give him a surprise with the support of the logic.
You see, adaptations are very different from if you are inspired by a story and you write something quite like it. It's just taking a thread from that. It's not any of his films that I've seen, Maqbool and the Omkara, they are not actually speaking adaptations. He has been inspired by a certain dramatic structure which exists in that novel, that stage play, and he feels that, he could sort of Indianize it and take that very skeletal dramatic structure and apply it to an Indian situation. I think that's what he has done.
Execution of the film is the most difficult job, because you have called for 100 people and suddenly you get 10,000 people on the shore. So you have to make them part of your script. So there is no time, because that's like an army precision. So many, you go for you have planned for 15, 20 shots, and time is like 5 o'clock, the sun will be down in 20 minutes. So all your 10 shots have gone. So information of those 10 shots you have to...
It's like going to war, as Ray said. He said that the word action has the ring of an army general marshalling his troops.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't have the time to write. If you sit to write over there, so some people do that, and we know the fate of those films because they just cannot make it right.
This is very interesting. I would start thinking about this thing once I land up on location or go on set. Does it work for you? Because for me it doesn't. It's too scary. And
I think that's what makes them masters also. They can do that.
But how much of short division or storyboarding or this thing do you do?
I'm a very bad painter. I can't draw a straight line also. So then I had to depend on software, which was very boring. So I started writing my shots. So I do my short divisions in a day advance. And what I like to do is to stage the scene with all my actors after the pack up. Because what happens, it must be happening to all of us, that when we land on a set and we tell the actors, okay, this is the room, so you take your entry from here, and you come from there. So all three of them will ask why I'm sitting here, why I'm coming from there, and why I'm coming from here. Why can't I go there? Why can't I sit? So that wastes such a lot of time. So this is the device I have, for myself, that I stage the scenes after the pack-up. So anyone who has a question can ask them, and then you can actually have the time to react to those questions, and which can enhance your script. So with that, I would like to conclude that still I am learning, and I keep failing, but I have the courage. I'm like a warrior that one day I would like to be a good writer. So this is how I would like to conclude. Thank you.